The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
We got tanks up there. Let's follow a range on Detroit. I see what I'm right on the target right now. I've got a couple of these right in front of me. I'm going after it. Right, I got him.
Welcome back to the Lead Pursuit Podcast. It is a full house tonight. Unfortunately, we actually weren't able to lock down Chris. Chris, how's everything going on in Michigan?
It's going pretty good. I had nothing to do with what y'all saw on the news.
We know that was you. They said it was former retired veteran Reserve Marines.
Plausible deniability.
All right. Well, obviously, Brett wasn't involved because if a Ranger had done those things, it wouldn't have been messed up. Brett, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. My wife's still trying to sell me on a new game room.
Yeah, well, is that a new game room in a smaller house with the same size game room?
Something like that, yeah.
That doesn't
multi-purpose game room / painting room.
That doesn't work. I lost that battle, and I'm now going to have an unfinished gaming space that will take a couple months to finish, but such is life. But that's all right. We have new guy number 1 on. So Steve Toth, who you guys heard last week talking about Mythic Americas. Welcome, Steve. Good to have you back on.
Yeah, good to be back again. Looking forward to see where this thing goes.
Cool. And new guy number 2, Trevor Smigelski. Yes. You're on there as well. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay. Just enjoying the lovely nights here in Florida.
Well, welcome to the Lead Pursuit Podcast, new guys. It's good to have some fresh blood on the team here, especially some other outside perspectives and, more people who cheat with tight turn cards like Steve. Besides just myself. But, that's one of those things. So hopefully...
Yeah, I learned it from watching you.
You didn't learn anything from watching me because I keep getting beat. At least that's what was happening to me all last week. So that's all right. Well, hopefully everyone's been getting a little bit of hobby work done. Brett, I know you've been working on some airstrike targets. You had those cool vehicle convoys and some other things set up at GOE. What have you got these days?
Yeah, I was kind of kicking myself because I've had a lot less hobby progress since Gathering of Eagles. But I'm getting some paint on some Allied and Axis artillery positions on those pill-shaped bases that Steve cut. So those will be coming along pretty soon. Those kind of things paint up pretty quick, but I've been really challenged at work, and I've been trying to sneak in a little bit of painting here and there. But I haven't been getting in what I usually get. So
you mean those official pill-shaped bases that will soon be available from Lead Pursuit, right?
Yes.
Shameless plug. Well, yeah, if anyone wants those, one of these days we'll get them up on the web store. I think, like Brett said a couple episodes ago, they actually turned out to be just the perfect size for either 1/285th scale armor, some of those Pico terrain, airfield kind of things, and give you some room to paint stuff on there, put ships on there, and now you don't have a bunch of fiddly little target bits kind of running around the table.
I got a handful of these targets of different types, and even some 3D markers for flak. I've got the little flak guns that I'm going to put, I think, on 25 mil circles, rounds or whatever. So once I get through those, then I'll get back to painting some planes. So I got some work to do.
Cool. Anyone else been knocking any hobbying out? I know we saw a bunch of Steve's daughter's models that were well painted and googly eyed.
Yeah, it's quite creative. The difference in kids, man. The middle one, she likes to paint as realistic as possible, and the younger one, the googly eyes and the glitter sparkles will have to do. We'll get them to the tournament one day, see what people think
Exactly.
of them. So,
as long as that is what beats Air Commodore Atchison, that's all I care about. Use those models. Trevor, have you knocked anything out besides sci-fi, fantasy, 40K, other stuff?
I got some paint down on 6 109Fs. I got the underside fuselages that the RLM 76 put down. And then the tops of the tan, I think it's like RLM.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, 74, I think it is, or something like that. So I'm doing them all as the Africa Corps. Because I got some Spitfire Mark 5Bs with the tropical filters I'm going to do with that same North Africa scheme. So I'm kind of doing like a whole North Africa kind of thing. Just 'cause I think those schemes look so awesome.
And
Plus,
no, Chris, before you accuse me, those are not my Spit 5Bs that he's painting for me. So don't even think about it.
Just start charging him what he's. I told you when we had that discussion. Me and him had a discussion. I said, "You realize, don't cut him a Haas. Dual income, former F-18 jock. No, don't be cutting him a
thank you,
painting
not
Haas.
dual income, four income." Yeah, I have no
Rub it
excuse
in.
for not paying my commission painter as well. But hey, it's work.
this is why I picked up a second job, because you're not giving me enough work.
Yeah,
Doug.
exactly. Well, apparently I should be sending you this box of P47s that's still in the shrink wrap here that's sitting on my desk, but along with all my other gaming goodness that's getting packed away in boxes. Well, Chris, I see all your paints are well organized behind you. Have you done any hobby work?
I got some of the GHQ jet carriers out finally and started cleaning them up. And haven't done
Did you have
a
to
whole
clean
lot
the
of
soot
other than that.
and the burned building off of them, or was
So
it?
I got them pre-riot.
Okay, so it wasn't the detritus of a
mine were
riot you're cleaning
pre-riot
off there.
GHQ models. Yeah, before they closed down for the riots. But no, I mean, that's the only stuff I've done that's Blood Red Skies related. I've been working on Dreadnought drop pod and some other stuff for 30K, but. So
Well, nice.
but yeah, it's right now. It's been trying to balance the time between the two because I'm getting pulled really hard the other way with some of the cool new stuff that's come out recently.
You can't give
on
up the crap. I
30K
mean,
side
that's the
house.
problem. Is
I
that
can't.
It's
I
just-
can't. I'm a
even
mainliner
if
Horus
it's
Heresy.
warped and doesn't freaking come out of the molds nice, and you spend more time reheating it and putting it back.
Well, that's why I was hitting all you guys up, and I was like, "Oh, have you read the new book? Have you read the new? Please get that crack in your arm, just like I did."
No.
Oh, trust me, I'm halfway through Inferno as it is. Thank you, Chris.
Oh my god, that freaking
Michael.
fluff on the freaking First Legion is just dope.
No.
But anyway,
Too busy
guys.
to dabble in other things. Well, let's move on real quick. Intel update, some things that we've seen out there on the interwebs and otherwise. Brett ruined my day when I think finally my cravings for a new mat had gone away, and he sent me this latest one from Deep Cut Studio. Brett, what'd you see out there?
Yeah, I think Deep Cut's got, I think they call it an islands mat, and it comes in different sizes.
Yes,
pretty
it
cool.
does.
Yeah. It looks like it would be for ship games, but, when I saw it, I thought, that looks like mountainous islands. Why couldn't we use that?
Yeah, I like a lot of the mats we've looked at that sure they're not aerial gaming mats, whatever. They're really good because at least they have pretty colors, nice cool islands and terrain and stuff that whatever. The rocks are too big, they'd be mountains in the scale of Blood Red Skies, but that's okay. I think it's a beautiful mat. It does look like it really was intended for Black Sails or the Mantic version of Black Sails, whatever that is, Magic Sails, whatever. But it looks like it'd be a cool mat. So I'm still holding out that someone will do a Midway mat or something else cool that'll be kind of island specific, but that's a really cool generic one.
Guadalcanal and Tulagi mat. That's what we need.
How big is it going to be? The size of my garage?
No, you just need the tip of Guadalcanal in one corner and the bottom of Tulagi Island in the other side. You've got Iron Bottom Sound there. You got everything you need.
I'll try to fit that in.
Any
and not have it,
excuse to squeeze
Google
just the
Maps
tip into the
satellite
podcast,
scale.
huh?
I tried already with the whole Google Maps thing, and it didn't go so well. It didn't go so well.
I tried just scaling it to the same size as Malta, and that's how I realized how small Malta is as an island, because Malta was like this itty-bitty little postage stamp on the big block of Guadalcanal. So, yeah, that didn't work so well for me, but that's all right. So I've seen a couple other mats that are out there. I know there's a couple new desert mats that just came out that got promoed that look pretty cool for a few of the desert theaters, things like that. I guess there's also some jungle mats that are probably more specific for like bolt action 28 mil scale. But a couple of those have come out that might actually be fun mats to play over. So there's always something out there, always something to spend your money on when it comes to mats. At least that's what Brett's there for. He'll show up with all the 10,000 mats that we need for the game.
I haven't made any mat purchases lately, but I've got a few in my mind since GOE that I want to get for sure.
Well, and I'll remind people because a couple of the guys from Fights On just pinged me. Yes, you can buy the Malta map. It's you want that mat if you want it in 4x8. You can go right on the website and order it there. For about $15 shipping, we'll get it shipped to you. If you want a different size, if you say, hey, we don't want the ludicrous Lead Pursuit size that takes up the entire table or extra, you just shoot us an email, send us a PM, let us know what you want. We'll get you a quote and we can get it shipped to you because we think it's a pretty cool mat. Those of you who are at GOE, got to see it up close and personal. I think it's pretty neat, Matt, and it's the guys at Deep Cuts, give us a pretty good rate to get that shipped pretty much anywhere in the world. Well, unless you're next door in Poland and somebody asked and it costs the same exact amount to ship theirs to the U.S. Sorry, I guess that's how flat rate shipping works. So
yeah, I mean, I encourage people to consider a 4x4 of just Valletta Harbor. That would look nice.
And we probably should do that. We should probably go out there to Deep Cuts and get that standardized. But the nice thing is Deep Cuts will totally customize it. So if you're listening to this podcast and you're also a player of, hex-based aerial war games, whatever, if you want hexes on there, we've produced a couple of them for some of our clients with 2-inch hexes, 3-inch hexes, whatever you want. They can get that put on there and get that printed and sent out to you. So it's pretty cool options you got there. Well, Steve, you've been busy with a couple side projects. Saw a couple storage boxes there on Facebook. Some other interesting things.
Yeah, just trying to stay busy doing different stuff. We were talking earlier, spending so much time at work on the computer, just staring at a screen. I've been trying to break away into some other stuff, get the creative juices going a little bit. So we dove into some of those storage boxes, see if we could get some cool, laser engraving details on the front of them. Trying to come up with something modular so it can fit into other store-ready tackle boxes or stuff like that, so you can carry a whole bunch of them around, carry one of them around. Yeah. Try to figure something out that kind of fits a lot of needs you have.
Well, we're trying to also keep a good partnership with the Rockworks guys, with Richard. I know I was talking to him today, trying to make sure that our sizes and his sizes were compatible. So whatever he shipped people as their baseline packing for the miniatures they ordered, that would still fit and work inside ours in some form or fashion, and that way it would, at least people wouldn't be buying extra and redundant foam and their foam not working and having to be custom trimmed and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's always, I mean, how great is that stuff coming in that? So if you could just have something, I think the ones that I was showing on the Ready Room there, 2 of the ROC Works foams would fit inside of that sideways, so you could fit 2 of the squadron sets down in there. So
yeah,
and then they could fit in a bigger carrying box or however you want to carry them.
And I guess the way it looks is it 3 of them that fit into one of those kind of taller Plano Harbor Freight kind of carrying cases.
Yeah, I think four nice. Of them fit in there, and then those are great boxes too, because you have the flip top lid on the top that you can put your chits or your measuring
your templates,
sticks,
all the other
that
crap
stuff
that goes in there. Yeah, like we were talking before the show, I've used those for years as drop pod carriers, being a Space Marine player. Where's all my Space Marines go? So they're awesome because they're tall. You can cram the stuff in there, and I'd magnetized mine, so I guess I'll probably now repurpose it from carrying drop pods to carrying small little airplanes. But that's cool. Well, what about your paint line? I hear you sent out a couple samples of paint.
I did. So I don't really even know why I decided.
So is this like body paint that I'm going to put on before I go down to New Orleans next weekend?
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, exactly. It's you don't have to wear a shirt. You just paint over your nipples and whatever you get, you get. Okay. Exactly. So basically I was just kind of looking at some different model paints that were out there. I was trying to come up with something that was a little more specific to Blood Red Skies. So on the smaller scale, a lot of the paint colors, you got to mix them down to lighten them up a little bit on the smaller scale, or and just a lot of guys are brush painting. So I was just looking to kind of come up with something that was just right out of the bottle, no thinner necessary, just put on your palette and go. And I'm friends with some people that are a lot smarter than I am. So I have a friend who's a chemical engineer. Said, let me take a shot at whipping some stuff up. So we have some samples going out now. I tried to coincide it with the Midway release that I think is going to be
sometime in the next decade,
soon on the horizon, right? So 3 paint sets for USMC World War II. Nice. You got the sea blue up top, the intermediate blue, and the white. So yeah, I mean, I'm surprised how much I like it.
It's not like the Vallejo sets where I buy 3 paints I need and 4 other paints that I don't need that I don't know what I'm going to do with.
And that was, that's actually where it kind of started, because I was looking to buy the World War II U.S. Marine Navy squadron kit, and it can't be found anywhere. Yeah,
I think Brett and I bought the last ones.
Yeah, we'll see though. So we got some. Trevor's got some coming. A couple other guys that do a lot of painting. Gunner down in Texas got some coming. Chris has got some coming. Brett's got some coming.
Strangely, I don't, because I don't paint.
Guys over in England.
So I can take photos of them for the internet.
I'm excited to see what guys think of it. Again, it's not something that I have a ton of experience with, so it's kind of the unknown for me. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Who knows?
Yeah, that
Side hustle, Steve.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I go back to Chris's point. How come this just started as a podcast and all of a sudden we're running a web store? I don't know. I blame Steve. Somehow this all happened. There I was just trying to sell masks
Blame
with
it on the
P40s.
new
Yeah,
guy.
blame it on the new guy. No, I think
A bunch of overachievers.
yeah, that would be our first problem. I think that's good though that to offer some very targeted, specific paints, and that's one of the problems that I used to complain about a lot in wargaming, and then just kind of resign myself to that fact that there was no budget way to pick your way through, and there was no way to pick targeted paint sets, and then all of a sudden you're buying them one by one, and kind of like Trevor and I went through, we're trying to find Middlestone, the single paint that we need, and you end up buying a whole set half the time just to get Middlestone. That's not the ideal way to go through your painting. Otherwise, your wall looks like Chris's back there, that's stacked up with hundreds of paints he will never use again.
What's the problem?
I don't know what the problem is there.
Yeah, and before I dove into it, I talked to a bunch of people out there painting. So we used kind of the same standard size little dropper bottle. They already come with a stainless steel agitator in the bottle, so you don't have to crack them open and spill half your paint, putting a little agitator in. So yeah, like I said, who knows if they're even going to be any good, or if this will be a one-time experiment to see if they get used, and I wind up sending the rest of them out. But yeah, who knows? We'll see what happens.
I mean, if it works well, having it U.S. based is big too, because I know a big thing is like ammo by MiG. Trying to find those paints on eBay for a decent price is really hard.
Yep.
Or
all the Spanish stuff is just rough to find,
It's fantastic.
especially during COVID. And I was reading an article about that. They said that Spain was hit so hard with COVID that it's really upset the Spanish economy, and so many of the paint makers are out of Spain. So it's been an issue.
Yeah, Scale 75 was another one that I had issue getting, and I'm waiting on Vallejo. It's just like, it's a headache and a half. And, people don't want to support AK Interactive because, that whole thing. I don't know if you guys heard about that.
Oh no, tell us all the dirt.
Oh, so
apparently I've
AK
had my head under a rock and I missed it. Chris probably knows.
AK Interactive is they do paints and a lot of times like powders and dioramas, and they're really big into the historical stuff. So their newest marketing program, which I don't understand why they did this, they used the Holocaust, I think it was some sort of another human rights issue in Africa, the Rhodesian genocide. They use those as
that's
you can make these dioramas.
Yeah. That's like the
use
guys that were
diorama.
marketing the Rhodesian patterned masks that someone said, "Hey, do they come with a free war crimes violation?" And you're like, awesome. At least somebody got the connection there.
Just short shorts and FALs.
Yeah, exactly. War crimes
sign
violation
me up.
not included.
And they use you could do this diorama of a heroin junkie overdosing.
You're like, who thought these things up? I mean, really?
Guys, question.
Yeah, exactly.
So they put out this we're sorry, we want to use art. It's yeah, you didn't do it right, guys. Sorry.
So, some of that stuff backfires. So between that and shipping restrictions, I know that makes things difficult. And I kind of laugh with Steve doing laser cut stuff, because we've run into the problem of shipping MDF into and out of the U.S. And so not having some of this stuff generated here, you ship enough MDF from overseas, all of a sudden it becomes a hazmat issue. And so I know the guys from Warlord ran into that. And it'll be good to at least have things produced here locally so people can get them shipped pretty quickly, pretty cheaply.
Yeah, didn't Dan have a problem with that from DVG? With something with
they had some problems. I think it was some markers or some add-on kit, and I think it was the Stalingrad boxed set for bolt action. All the terrain was MDF, and so Sarissa
was it radioactive?
Yeah,
or
Sarissa had to
something?
ship it here, but because of the chemical that's in it, it pops as soon as it goes through customs. I don't know. And once again, I don't want to. I do enough in the import-export business and file enough paperwork in that anyway. I don't want to know how the rest of that stuff works with MDF.
Radiation's not that bad, guys. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly. Says the man who wears a dosimeter every day.
My teeth are glowing.
Yeah, exactly.
What are
What's
you
the
talking about?
problem? Okay, so hey, moving on. Let's talk about some unofficial cards. So because apparently I have been falling down on the job and not been generating that many new cards, Martin Wilson has definitely taken up the charge on that, which has been good. So Martin's cards have been out there in the ready room, and I dropped him a line today. I said, hey, can we throw those on Lead Pursuit so at least we have a single collection point? Because as everyone knows who's gone into any Facebook group, the files section of every Facebook group is an absolute shit show. And you can't find things, and you're scrolling through pages, and if you don't know the exact name in the title, you can't search for it. So I asked him, I said, hey, can we upload a bunch of that stuff? Absolutely. The good and the bad thing is, the good thing is the art is all his. That is all cool. The bad thing is the art is not all his. So these are not cards that Lead Pursuit can hit print on tomorrow. With a little tweaking, could we? Yeah, we can do some derivative artwork stuff on there and get them done. And that may take some time. Martin's been working with us, sending us some of the image files and stuff. So
he was showing off some of those cards at the last happy hour.
Yeah, they
really
are
nice.
awesome, and he's done a great job. And that's why I think he and I are just going to sit down, and I'm going to hopefully roll him into the same process on how we do things, such that he can generate his part of it, send us the sample stuff. We do our derivative art generation stuff, slap them all together, and we've got some unofficial cards for people. Because once again, it's stuff that there won't be cards for a while. For the Buffalo
or ever.
Well, I'll tell you. So let's kick this can over. I have seen not the artwork, but seen the actual text for the Buffalo cards. Now,
yes,
I'm gonna say, and I don't know if Ken or anyone else outed this, the versioning of the Buffaloes that are coming out is a little bit strange. Not really going to ask why. Not really going to care. There's at least 2 different boxes of Buffaloes that may only be differentiated by a prop spinner. But at least there's text for cards and other things that are leading me to believe that's closer to release. I think Hellcats are still ahead of it from everything I've seen, although I have not seen the final text for Hellcats. But seeing the text for some of these Pacific Theater cards at least makes me believe they're going to be there. But it wouldn't be Warlord without it being confusing. In the middle of this data dump of Pacific stuff, I did see a medium bomber. So thank goodness, HE-111, I saw the card and the data sheet for that. So that should be getting an updated one that's going to come out not as an expansion card, but as a actual boxed kit card. So that will be there with a requisite number of traits and things that it needs for the aircraft. Don't know when it's going to come out, but it's at least on the list. But yeah, like a lot of this other stuff that's on there, you will not see a ME-163 anytime soon, I'm pretty sure. And then, of course, he even has Martin even generated some of the Johnny Red specific cards. So those are kind of cool. So if you can't find them on Facebook, always go over to leadpursuit.net/aircraft. And we've dumped all the aircraft cards in there, trait cards, all that kind of stuff. You can go to the ACES page, which, strangely enough, leadpursuit.net/ACES. That will get you there. And go find all those add-on cards that you can use for your games. Unofficial, of course. Never to be used in a tournament.
Anybody else playing on a Buffalo herd? I am.
I just ordered 6 today. I did a bad thing.
You need more.
Yeah, no, I don't. I almost ordered 12, but I ordered 6. It'll be my Rainbow Squadron again. I'll have 2 that I'll do as US, and then 4 that are going to be done in 2 different versions of Southeast Asia. But yeah, I sadly ordered Buffaloes, so I have no excuse. All right, talking about user-generated stuff. Hey, have you guys stapled those pages back in that I tore out of your campaign system? What's going on with that there, Steve?
We've played a few games.
Yeah, we're working through it, playing a couple games, ironing some stuff out. I think we're making some good edits on it. We kind of got a little sidetracked. You wanna play with your new toys every once in a while, so kind of put the work down, did a little playing, but. Yeah, I think actually last game had a little scare. My prize squadron leader, Monty Yoxel of the RAF, got shot down. Brett actually got a victory on him. Parachute open, though. He fell into the water and was picked up by recovery crews in the channel later, so he will be flying again the next mission. But, yeah, it was almost a bad night in the Toth household. The kids, the wife were kind of running for cover. Thought there was going to be some screaming and yelling going on.
Did your wizard have to cast a magic missile to rescue him? Did you need a cleric to resurrect him? Dorks.
No. We got a couple nice friendly D6 rolls, a parachute deployed, and no injury, and he lives to fight another day.
Hey, let's be clear. How many games have we played? Like 5 or 6 so far in this new campaign? I haven't won a single victory. A single scenario.
You don't have the cheat
So
codes. You don't have aggressive tactics and tight turns. So.
Man, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, there's some serious card cheating going on.
This last game too, it went a little off pace too. You know, it was usually we're playing really cautious. In this last game, I think we both just kind of went all in, taking head-on shots. And I mean, I think at the end of the game, you know, he had a solid 10 boom shits. I had a solid 12 boom shits. Couple on each attack squadron. Yeah, it was an ugly game for sure.
Oh, but I guess to answer your question, progress or maybe an update on the campaign thing,
like when it might be out to the rest of the world.
We justify our playing with our toys as like play testing to find anything that needs to be, you know, tweaked or whatever. The good news is the content is all solid.
Okay.
You know, whatever, we haven't had anything where it's like, oh man, we got to revamp this or that. You know, really tiny little edits. However, I think the big work we have to do is just formatting changes. You know, so. We scheduled some time to start nugging that out. We'll get back to our work schedule as it comes to cranking that out. I think later this week.
Good. I know. You know, like we've joked about. Sure, I did a little bit of upending things, but I think when we all sat around and we looked at a more table, less flowchart, but not as many pages. I don't know how to describe the product that at least I hope we all kind of came to agreement on. I think that'll be pretty cool. And I think it'll streamline things for the player who, like me, about 3 pages into a book, just loses all of their interest. You know,
well, the flowchart idea is probably really good because that was the logic we were using when we were making this thing was really a flowchart. Without realizing we were doing a flowchart, it's a flowchart. So that's where we're at right now. We've got a couple of flowcharts.
But let's not scare everyone away. I mean, at least the iteration. These don't look like conventional flowcharts. I mean, they're not as painful with flowchart symbology. They're tables tied by arrows, I guess is the way I'd call them, So
we're calling it flowchart for lack of a better term,
so
I guess.
You can see what your die rolls need to be on the table, and then those die rolls tell you which next table and draw the black arrow down to it, so all the black lightning bolts connect and everything works that way. So that should be good. I'm looking forward to that. And I know there's a lot of people out there that are looking forward to playing it when Doug will stop messing with it and let Brett and Steve release what they want to release. So that should be coming soon. All right, well, let's talk about things to buy out there that we've wasted our money on. I know I spent way too much money with my buddy over at Unipolar Games. Brett, you were having a little bit of non-buyer's remorse, things you didn't pick up.
I was kicked. Yeah, I guess just because I wasn't paying attention, I got out of there without picking up one of those dice trays. Jay at Unipolar made those killer GOE dice trays and Luftwaffe trays and all that, and I walked out of there with that one. And I'm a bad person. I haven't gone online to order one, so I need to do that.
It's actually real easy. You can either search for Unipolar Games, UNIPOLAR, or just go on Facebook, click on Unipolar Games. They're listed underneath all of our fellow sponsors out there. And you can go on his website. You can buy Blood Red Skies stuff. You can buy individual faction stuff. You can buy Gathering of Eagles stuff. You can buy maps. So whatever you want, all the same stuff that we saw at Gathering of Eagles, you can hop on there and you can pick that up. To include, Chris's favorite, the pink Gathering of Eagles T-shirt. Yes, you can get that on the website as well.
Strong.
Chris did get it in extra large, but that's all right. That's what the pandemic does to you.
Dude, you're killing me tonight, man.
It was all the tenderloins. If you had bought that the first day, you probably would have fit a large like the rest of us. But you bought it the last day, so it's like 2 tenderloins later.
I'm taking Christina to Indiana, not this weekend, but next weekend, just shoot guns and freaking hang out to have a tenderloin. Because she's heard me talk about it for 4 years, and she's like, "Can we go down to Ryan's and shoot guns and eat tenderloin?" I'm like,
yes,
sure.
We can. That sounds like a horrible weekend. Why would anyone want to do that?
That's a keeper.
Yeah, exactly. Mine comes up with home improvement projects. Son of a bitch. Oh, that's all right. I'll work through it. Yeah, so if you want to get any of that stuff from Unipolar, all of that swag is on there. All those dice trays, all the cool stuff they had there. So if you, like Brett, were a terrible person and didn't pick yours up there, just jump on the internet, Unipolar Games, go find them, and you can pick that up. Well, before we head into the main topic, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And we're back. So we're going to talk tonight about cheat tactics, illegal cards. Wait, no. That's Steve's half of the conversation. We're going to talk about trait tactics, right?
Man.
Right, Brett? That's what we're going to cover?
Yeah.
All right. I know you had this finely crafted, well-prepared dissertation you wanted to give on trait cards. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you run the show as to what you want to say about how to either cheat like Steve or how to be a Blue Falcon like Brett.
Well, it's not quite that well thought out, but it does come from the fact that Steve and I have been playing some campaign games, and early on, I was learning stuff every game. It wasn't like it was my first time playing, but I thought, gosh, I'm missing some things on these cards, and that's what inspired this discussion, really. So I kind of jotted down some notes about what was on my mind after making a few mistakes with my hand size and how many doctrine cards I could play and all that stuff, even when I'm supposed to, refill my hand. So anyway, that's where all this comes from. So I just thought maybe a discussion with you guys and Steve about cards and maybe how to get the most out of them would be pretty good. So the cards I'm talking about are really all the cards that go in your action deck, right? And I think we could probably start with, when the heck would you even start using the card mechanic in the game? Because, if you're just cracking open the starter set and you've never played, I think I would suggest, I don't know how you guys feel, play for a while without even cards, right? Just play the basic order of operation without any cards. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's how I always do my first demo game, is I just get people used to moving, pivoting, burning advantage, doing all those things. And then they start to learn to love or hate Tight Turn.
Yeah, right. So, after a handful of games, you kind of get that and you're ready for more, right? That's where the cards come in. It just adds so much variety and everything to the game. So, that's probably the best time to start working in the action deck. And really, the action deck, I think most of our listeners probably understand how you build an action deck. But if you're new to the game, you get a trait card for every plane. If your traits have more than one trait, you split them evenly between the number of planes you have. So like in my case, I play 109s a lot, BF 109s, and they have great dive and great climb. So if I have 6 109s, I get 3 of each. Just split them evenly like that. And when you're using trait cards during the game, the trait cards only apply to the plane that has that trait. So if you're playing a scenario and you have, say, BF 110s and BF 109s, well, BF 110s don't have great climb. So you can't use that great climb card on a 110 just because you have the card in your deck at that time or in your hand. So it's just kind of a little thing there. But you get doctrine cards. Depending on the size of your hand, you're going to have one or more doctrine cards. There's theater cards. There's part of the theater cards are also weather cards. And then, of course, you have the A skill cards, right? So there are A skills that you could add to your deck. If you have a guy who's a named ace, or you decide in your list building to bring a pilot skill 5 guy, you can chuck in an ace card for that guy. And there's all kinds of constraints and limitations on cards, because if you're playing a really strictly, historical narrative game, you could use the historical traits and doctrine cards that are in the airstrike book and kind of limit your choices to that. But hey, maybe you're playing in a tournament like Gathering of Eagles. You could probably use any doctrine card or whatever you want, but maybe it's limited to just one or something.
Talk about how that worked for both you and Steve, who played in the tournament, versus how it works in your campaign game. Because I know you're trying to be historical in the campaign game, so you're not necessarily always able to make the most optimum pairing for the aircraft versus what you would do in a tournament.
Yeah, that's right. In our campaign, I have a lot of limitations, compared to, say, a tournament that we just did where I could use low altitude performance. That's really, low altitude performance is really a doctrine card that's, I think, more for the Russian planes. And man, when you put that on a plane that has great dive, like a BF 109F, you can do some ugly things. You can earn yourself the Blue Falcon Award and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's really totally different style of play, right? Because when you're playing in a tournament, you're really trying to look for those combinations that are really going to maximize it, right? So when you take something, aggressive tactics, defensive tactics, and you compare that with a single trade airplane that has tight turn, you can essentially use that infinite amount of times, right? Because you're just trading in that tight turn to get that extra angle or to turn those shots into a deflection shot. Where in the campaign, you might only have that available for 2 or 3 games, or you might not have it available at all, and then you're looking more to just make the best of what you have. So it's a totally different strategy when it comes to deck building.
Yeah, you could really kind of build a list on how you want to play by putting different trait cards with different doctrine cards and really making them play off each other. When you're playing the campaign stuff, you have those limitations. You can't do that as easily. But even in a campaign game, there's going to be like Steve and I are playing a campaign right now, and we're in sort of Battle of Britain time frame, and I'm able to still use doctrine cards that work with a bonus for things like Great Climb and Great Dive, especially Great Dive. And sometimes I think when I was first starting to play, some of those cards that work in conjunction with an aircraft trait card didn't seem as appealing because it wasn't as obvious what they did for me. I was looking at things like, ooh, man, this other trait seems better, or this other doctrine card seems better. But what I was missing is how once you combine a particular doctrine card that uses something like Great Dive, all of a sudden it enhances what your planes naturally do. And that's something to consider. I might be getting a little ahead of myself about this discussion.
You are, but I was going to throw it over to Trevor and say, what have you seen in some of the tournaments? Has anyone done well that has not tied their doctrine card to a trait their aircraft has that allows them to keep burning it multiple times as a bonus card?
No, you see pretty much what Brett was saying, like aggressive tactics, and you tight turn's a big thing. So you have the aggressive tactics, spam sort of thing going on, and then you have I played a MiG spam list the other day, and it was like I lost what he was doing. I was like, what the hell are you doing? Like this card. I mean, and these guys they play a lot of these card mechanic games like Star Trek Attack Wing and X-Wing. So their minds work differently. Like mine is always kind of like more like, let's see what historical fun I can play. And they gotta go into how can I maximize my ships or my planes. Right. I mean, they're not freaking like the janky stuff, like putting boom chits on me before the game, because they kind of know where I sit with a lot of my games. But they do take these doctrine cards that just enhance like these really measly planes and just make them so much better. Like the Yak 1, for instance. I mean, take a Yak 1 spam list and you start playing with some of those doctrine cards, it can be pretty brutal just to deal with all that. Like, even they're not still putting out a lot of dice on you, but you still have to deal with the amount of firepower coming in, because all you gotta do is roll 6 in this game. You got boom chit. Yeah. on top of the card mechanic that enhances their ability to get those firing solutions and get themselves in position to further maximize their output and maximize their plane's ability to score boom chits on you.
Equipment cards can do that too, because some of the equipment cards can make some of your things so much better. And one of the things I learned early on with the equipment cards is some of them have a points cost, obviously, but it's not a point cost per aircraft. It's a point cost for that entire squadron. So you pay whatever the points are. Let's say it's a 15-point card. That effect for that card applies to all the aircraft in that squadron. You pay that point cost one time. So that's helpful. So a lot of times, if you've got a few extra points laying around, you have to make that choice. Ooh, which equipment card do I want for these guys? And that can do things for you, like shed boom chits and all kinds of stuff.
Well, with drop tanks, you don't need. I mean, I don't think there is a point cost attached to drop tanks, and it's huge, especially in competition play.
Oh, yeah, because people are always going to try to throw boom chits on you before you even start. They're going to stack those.
And again, it's like you have your competition play and you have your narrative play. I mean, we see it in any game, any kind of. I mean, whether it's 40K, Star Trek, Blood Red Skies, there's the competitive side, and then there's the more narrative side of it, where you can kind of meld the two, but there's usually a definitive list building ability, like between a competitive player and a narrative
Well,
player.
and I think that's
believe.
why I've kind of tried to nip a little of that with at least the way we were doing the GOE tournaments, that giving you some fairly narrow choices for what, the ones that I see abused the most, which are the theater cards, not necessarily the doctrines. And so to at least narrow some of that down, at least makes it hopefully a little bit easier for guys like Brett to carry out their plan.
Yeah, get a chance. Well, having a single, kind of going off the reservation a little bit here, but you're thinking about how you ran the GOE and having everybody having the freedom to pick a single doctrine card. I think that was a good limiter because you get to do something. You could, like in my case, I used low altitude performance, which out in a campaign setting, I would normally never get a chance to play. But man, it enhanced my BF 109Fs with great dive. And it's a defensive card. It allowed me, when I was getting tailed, to next turn, fly away, dive away, even though I was already disadvantaged. Normally, I don't get the chance to do that, and I miss that card now, right? Anyway, just to say that it was cool that I got to try that out and do that and do some fun little trick or have some kind of little gimmick for my guys that I wouldn't otherwise get to have. But you limited it by the fact that it was one, right? And I was committed to that one. And then the same thing on the theater cards. We get to the table, and you had to choose which, from a short list of theater cards. So that was fun. That made this whole idea of building your hand in the tournament setting a lot of fun too.
And I think with building your hand and building your list comes with building the planes. I mean, how many times do you see these low pointed, 1 firepower, 2 maneuver, 8 speed planes? You don't see. My biggest issue is like the P-38, way overcosted. Completely overcosted. It's not worth taking, even with 10 points taken off.
Even with that bonus to drop it down as a heavy fighter,
it's really not. It has 2 engines, but it didn't perform that role. It was air superiority. Right. It was a dogfighter, not like a 110 that kind of was multi-purpose, or the Mosquito. So why is it cost so much compared to the 110s and the Mozzies?
Right. I think there's going to be at some point a rebalancing of some of those multi-engine fighters once we figure out better how those are going to fit in, because no one's taking them right now. They're just not worth it, even with the 10 points off for heavy fighter. But we'll go from there.
And if you're playing like a bounce scenario, you're going to lose. There's no way.
Nice. All right, Brett, continue on talking about hand size and some of the mechanics.
Oh yeah, well, standard hand size is 3 cards. And you get more cards in your hand depending on how many planes you're fielding. So if you get 4 cards if you have more than 13 aircraft, and that what I mean by that is you have a discard pile, and then you have the 3 or 4 cards you turn up that you can play during the turn, and that's all your hand is. Whatever you draw off that top pile. And there's lots of different ways to play it. There's standard deck and there's open deck. And we do something that's almost kind of in between in our campaign. We do standard deck except ace cards. If ace cards come out, those become like bonus cards in our deck. So sometimes our hand size could be, 4, 5, 6 cards if you start counting in those ace cards. So that's something we've done.
Why do people prefer one over the other? So what are some of the reasons you've seen people prefer to play a standard hand versus the open deck? And that's kind of all you guys.
I absolutely prefer the open deck in the tournament play we did, because I think it lets you maximize all your toys on the table. But I have a totally different feeling about it in a campaign setting.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm on the fence both ways, right? And honestly, like we were saying earlier, I even love playing just without the cards. Just line up your airplanes and let's play. As far as open deck or standard deck, I could go either way. I thought open deck was really fun in the tournament for the same reason Brett said. It kind of lets you, you're playing a shorter game, you're playing a quick game, you're playing multiple games in a day. So, it's kind of like if you were playing poker or something like that in a tournament. You want a lot of action on the table all the time. You just want to keep it going, keep the action going. And I think open deck does a really good job of that. It keeps the action going. It keeps it fresh. It keeps it fast. And, you're in the fight the whole time. The standard deck, I kind of like how it gives you a little more strategy of how you're going to, when are you going to use these? You're kind of I feel like you're reading the whole board saying, oh, I'm thinking that guy looks like if I save a tight turn for him, he might be able to use that. Or this guy's getting shot now, but that guy over there, he might be getting 2 shots. I might want to save one of those robust cards for that guy. So I feel like the standard deck really places an emphasis on that strategy of it. But I could go either way,
well,
really.
Well, I think it does,
I
especially
both
for
ways.
2-trade airplanes. I mean, it's one thing when it's, how am I going to balance my theater, my doctrine, and my ace cards versus my single trait. But then when you have a 2-trade airplane like a Hurricane, you're like, well, I really love tight turn, but for part of the turn, I'm really going to want to have that robust and try to decide how you're going to balance onto what you hold on to. Because then usually, if you're like me, you're sitting there with an aggressive tactics or defensive tactics that you can afford to get rid of partway through your turn, but you don't want to get rid of it too soon and not be able to use it in other activations.
Yeah, I mean the two trade airplanes really, even on open deck, really kind of throw a wrinkle into your strategy of what you're doing, because that when you're splitting those traits in half, it just really changes the way. And I tend to shy away from the 2 trait airplanes because of that. Honestly, because I'm still going to this day swear to the fact that the only reason I lost to Commodore Atchison is because I forgot to play one of the cards. So I tend to steer away from the 2 trade airplanes just for the management aspect of it.
That's cool. One of the things I learned early on is I was not refilling my hand properly. I was doing it at the end of every turn, then reshuffling my deck or refilling my hand, and didn't realize that after every Playin activation, you could discard if you wanted to. So a little better about that now. That gives you a little more, you cycle through the deck a little faster if you do it that way, which I think is the way you're actually supposed to do it, but probably a simple mistake to make. I was going to discuss a little bit about just the basic card types, because there's so many different types. If you're looking at, in the bottom of the card, it'll say something like discard or remove or whatever. And that explains how the mechanic of the card actually works. Some of the cards you just play one time at the deployment portion of the game. And those are typically marked remove, right? Those are your remove cards. So some of your weather cards are that way. There's some other, I think, theater, and even, I don't know if there's many doctrine cards that do that, but certainly some theater cards that do that.
Yeah, there's some that have been misprinted that way, like they printed interlocking fire as a remove, which it's not. It's a discard.
Right.
You use it more than once.
Right. You've got your positive trait cards that are always on. Your positive and negative traits, those always apply. And so they're not necessarily in your deck. It's just, if you have a card that has, agile, you don't put the agile card in your deck, but it always applies to that aircraft, whatever that trait is. Maybe trait's not the right word to use, but whatever that
ability is, it gives you.
That ability. Yeah.
So that's the way I always think about the negative and positive traits. Or negative and positive, since they're both on. Negative is something that you unfortunately need to remember, because generally it's something that happens during your opponent's activation, like vulnerable. Sometimes it's something that happens during yours, like sluggish, where you can't outmaneuver a guy. But it's always something that's going to create a negative interaction there. And then obviously the positive traits, good things like armored, bad things like rocket, heading a boom chit to yourself every turn. But yeah, those are the way those traits work. And I always laugh that rocket's considered a positive trait, because sure, it does give you basically being like a jet with the ability to climb, but it means you eat a boom chit every turn.
Yeah, there's reaction cards that work in reaction to an enemy doing something. There's bonus cards that allow you to, maybe this usually applies to like a doctrine. So if you have a doctrine that's what we were talking earlier in the discussion about how you can capitalize on using traits or using doctrines that work together with your traits. So just as an example from my own collection, the Great Dive and things like Sustain Dive and Dive Away, those make Great Dive a bonus card. So I can burn one of my Great Dive cards, which I have many of in my deck potentially, where I only have the one Great Dive doctrine card. And so instead of burning the doctrine card, I can keep the doctrine card in my hand and just burn one of those Great Dive cards that come up frequently in my deck.
To people, you let's assume you're using a 3-card deck, and maybe you've got an ace trait there, and you happen to have both sustained dive away, one of those cards. So we'll use dive away and great dive. And so because it says bonus great dive on that dive away card, then you play the 2 cards together, but the one that gets burned is the great dive card. Now, you still get the benefit of both cards, right? So you get to do what's in great dive plus what dive away gives you or whatever augmentation. So I think that's an important thing that people need to remember, especially for cheaters like Steve. When you see them use both aggressive tactics and tight turn, that in a sense is a double move, because it's allowing you to make that initial first turn for aggressive tactics, and then with tight turn you're still able to use your 45-degree turn in there. So
I have lost games to Steve purely because of that great dive and defensive tactics.
I think defensive tactics is where it hurts the most, because then he does a full 90-degree turn right there, right in front of you.
Defensive tactics that's brutal, man. There's so many times that it's like you can almost hear the fist pound the virtual table there over the internet. Like, son of a bitch, I had you tailing, and now it's how is
Trevor,
this a deflection shot?
How many times have you lost those shots out? Because it seems to me that defensive tactics is definitely one of the favorites out there in the competitive scene.
Every time. I don't think there's a hand without defensive tactics and aggressive tactics. All the tactics, and I don't have any tactics, so I usually just lose.
Yeah. That's the easy answer. Well, that's why I was the tournament organizer, that I didn't have to lose.
Even in my friendly games, I can't remember the last time I actually did well in a game.
Oh, don't worry. I think I've lost the last 5 tabletop sim games, 6 back to back. Yeah, it's been ugly, but I'll blame that on playtesting, not on tight turn.
Yeah, those doctrine cards, man. That for guys that are listening, kind of looking to maximize their play, really give a read through those doctrine cards. I think that is really something that you can. I hate to use the word exploit, because exploit has such a negative connotation to it.
Well, that's what
really
Chris is used to in 30K. It's all about exploits and how you can make that perfect list.
That's definitely a thing. Making sure, if you can, use doctrines that also work well with your traits that you have.
Yeah.
It's all about what stacks on top of what stacks on top of what stacks.
Just like what game, Chris?
So, I've been sitting here silently a little bit, and I'm laughing about everybody talking about card mechanics, but I'm the guy that gets teased as being a supposed Magic player.
I figured you were just keeping silent because you didn't want to correct us in all of our misspeaks. So
no. I'm still trying to figure out how to build a deck.
Yeah,
exactly.
Me. Well, hey,
I just paint pretty airplanes, dude, and get them shot down.
If you hadn't spent so much
That's
time,
what I'm good at.
crushing everybody at Heresy that weekend, then we would have been good. But that's all right. You had to hand Brian a little bit of little comeuppance there. So
we got a long going feud on that. We play just about every time we see.
That's good.
And
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, let's. I know we don't have a whole lot of time left, so let's just talk a little bit about how we retain certain cards. Because there's some cards that we talked about that are removed. That you play that card once, it's gone, and most of them are things you just need to get rid of because it happens at deployment. There are a few actions kind of cards that are removes. You think once again, like Deep Pockets is one of those that you play that one individually, it goes away every time you play it. So that always makes for an interesting consideration. But how do some of these other ones work? For like the pilot test, the maneuver test, the gunnery test, how does that all go into retaining an action card?
Well, any card at the bottom that says pilot test, a lot of them also have a bonus. We talked a little bit about bonus cards, how you can burn the card, the trait card instead of the doctrine card to keep it as a bonus. But then also those cards may say pilot test, maneuver test, or gunnery test. A pilot test is simply the pilot skill of the pilot that's using that card. So let's say it's a pilot skill 4 guy that you're using that doctrine. Let's say it's a doctrine 4. You roll 4d6. If you get a success, you get to keep that card. Same thing with the maneuver test. Everybody here is familiar with a maneuver test, pilot skill plus agility. And then a gunnery test is just your firepower for that particular aircraft. So, sometimes you've got an ace. I think I was using one that had an ace skill or something. I don't remember what it was now, but it was a gunnery test to keep it. It was only, firepower 1. So, okay, here's 1 dice, see if I get it. But, if you get that 6, you don't have to burn that card. You get to keep it in your hand.
Right.
sometimes those gunnery test ones are powerful because it enhances your firepower or something like that. Usually.
And let's talk about how some of these things that are trait tied as a bonus. So I use the example of like defensive tactics. If I'm in there with a hurricane, and so I'm using defensive tactics, but that stacks with, or that's a bonus card for tight turn. So when I'm being shot at out of sequence, I'm playing both a tight turn and defensive tactics, and then basically burning that tight turn. I don't use the tight turn per se, but it gives me a 90-degree turn for defensive tactics instead of just 45. But if I've got 6 airplanes out there, I burn through 3 tight turns, and in open deck, those are flipped back over. They're done. So the next time I want to play defensive tactics, the only way I'm going to get it back is roll what's on the bottom, which I think for defensive is a maneuver test, I think. But I then have to make that roll to keep the card. Otherwise, it's going to get flipped. Now, where this gets a little bit weird, at least that I've seen, is how that interaction happens with a standard deck. Because you don't reshuffle and flip cards in an open deck until the end of the turn. So once burned, stay burned. Yet, in a standard deck, once you've consumed the entire deck, you start over. So theoretically, you might see a burned tactics card or burned doctrine card again in a standard deck where you won't in an open deck. So it's just a little bit of a risk you have to take.
I think that's worth noting too, because I believe, hopefully I'm not misspeaking here, in standard deck, you are replenishing your cards as you're using them. So you're always having 3 cards in your
you replenish at the end of the
hand.
activation. So you burn what you can in the activation, then you replenish them and go from there.
But essentially what that's doing is if you have a single trait airplane and you have a defensive tactics with tight turn, you always essentially have a tight turn to burn with it. Where if you're playing open deck, you're flipping those tight turns over, and if you're using those tight turns defensively, you're not going to have them when it comes your time to move. With standard deck, you'll have it.
And I think for a single trade, it's not near as much of a compromise because your plane is either offensive or defensive, and hopefully if he's defensive, he's not getting ganged upon by 2 or 3 fighters where he would need to use that multiple times in the activation. But for the Hurricane, suddenly becomes limiting because now it is a choice. If I take that as a defensive tactics, do I play robust or do I play defensive tactics and use a tight turn? And then that really is a trade-off, and that's why I don't like taking defensive tactics as much on an aircraft like the Hurricane, because my getting shot at card is robust. That's what I need to use when I'm getting shot at. If I take a tactics or a doctrine card that plays with a trait card, then I can react wonderfully to any defensive shot multiple times, yet there comes a point that I could end up burning all of my tight tactics on either neutral or disadvantaged fighters before they get to their point where they want to move and I might want to use that turn. So it's just an interesting compromise.
Yeah, and I mean, truthfully, when it all comes down to it for me, I mean, we joke around a lot about winning the game, losing the game. I mean, I'm playing for fun, right? And planes with tight turn, they're just fun to play, man. They just give you so many options. You're not playing for cold hard cash?
I thought you're in the same competitive circuit we are.
I haven't actually. I was trying to keep my low light basement Blood Red Skies backdoor alley games under wraps, but thanks for calling me out.
I was about to say,
because
the check at the end of this year's tournament scene is going to be about $3.50, $3.50 if we're lucky.
No, but you want to play planes that are fun to play, right? And the tight turn planes are always fun to play. I know at the tournament, watching Brett play that, the denialist. I mean, that was just fun to play. Every time somebody came to the table against Brett and they wanted to do something, he was kind of like, nope, you're not doing it.
Didn't really catch on to it, and why we called him the Blue Falcon was his entire list was built around denying your actions, not giving him any other actions to do something cool, but it was around denying your actions and the ability to say, oh, no, you're not going to do that. Whether it was, I believe it was, I know your type and Great Climb were the 2 things that you were around. So
Great Climb has changed the way Steve plays against me because he knows it's there, and he won't try to climb. He'll just outmaneuver if he knows I have a Great Climb.
Yeah, that Great Climb card, when you play somebody that has it. And I think in the ready room, some guys were talking about that today too with the one Spitfire. I think the Mark 9 Spitfire has great climb as a trait. So it's I believe it doesn't have tight turn. It has great climb instead of tight turn, I believe. But that great climb is just, it changes the way you have to play against somebody that has that, because you just can't get that advantage back. So you really think about it before you're going to burn advantage.
I don't know.
If you're not getting into a tailing shot.
I didn't feel that way when I played against you with 109s, but maybe it was just the way you were rolling dice. Maybe that's what it was. Your mad odds that kept getting me in there.
That's it.
Like, whatever. He's going to fail the roll.
My Gathering of Eagles list, I was able, because I was taking just the historical doctrine cards, I had low altitude performance. So if I was disadvantaged and you thought you were going to get me, I just dive away, right? With 109Fs, they kind of scoot, out of there. And then I had an ace with I know your type. So because I figured everybody and their brother was going to be coming with tight turn cards. I said, anytime I could just say no, you're not doing your tight turn. Now you gotta play legit now. That was fun. And then the great climb, I was calling that my Panther sex card because 40% of the time it works every time. And that was the gist of my whole list right there.
All right, so I did misspeak there. The Spit 9 is the one that has tight turn and great climb. So that kind of has the best of both worlds, but they're split in half. And then it's the Spit 14 that has the great climb and the heavy hitter, but nice. The great climb card, it just changes the way you have to play against somebody big time.
Well, we've been spending about an hour here talking between the regular Blood Red Skies stuff and the cards and everything. I know some guys got to go and we got to finish up. So we'll finish up the second half of this in another episode. But I appreciate everyone taking the time to chat about it, give their feedback on cards, and even if it is Chris talking about the Oraska Frillback or whatever the latest card from Magic the Gathering is. You can see me bring that up on my screen.
Me, man. You're killing me.
I don't even know what the names of any of these cards are. I have to go to the website to read this. But anyway, anyone have any last minute fadeaway shots they want to take at anyone before we close and wrap this up?
No.
God, you guys are boring. Hey, so everyone knows where to find us, leadpursuit.net, to go out there. You can leave us feedback there. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. I guess I'll have to actually post something out there other than cats and beer in our feed. But you can find us out there. You can also find us on any one of the major podcast branding areas. You can find us on iTunes, Google, SoundCloud, all those different places. So leave us some comments, leave us some feedback. And please, if you're in the ready room, ask us some questions. Tell us what you want to hear us discuss on the air, because otherwise we're going to talk about cards, and then we're going to start talking about clouds, and then we're probably going to talk about terrain. My God, it's going to be boring. We'll talk about the rules of this game. So let us know what you want to hear. The good news is we do have some other authors that will be coming on here. Hopefully we'll have some World War II and some modern aviation authors come on, talk about a couple things, and we'll hopefully do that for the next episode. All right, thanks everyone for listening, and thank you for your time.